April 8th, 2025 will go down in Lorcana history as the day the bans came in. There were only two, but are these bans really that devastating? Let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another video. I'm TheXploder, and the only thing that's going to be banned around here is me and my bad jokes. Trust me, they're terrible. If you've been a part of the channel for any length of time, yeah, they're terrible. Today we're going to be going over the newly banned cards in the constructed format of Lorcana. Talk about why I personally think they are banned, and some other things I've heard on the grapevine as well, to, well, go a little bit in depth with it. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So yes, in case you have not heard, Lorcana has banned the first two cards of the game. Bearing in mind this is only in constructed formats. So outside of constructed formats, if you're playing a format that is running, let's say, a sealed or limited event near you that does involve set 2 of the game, so you have a chance of pulling out of a pack a copy of Flaversham, you'll be absolutely fine. You should be able to use Flaversham in a sealed, limited format, and obviously hyper-casual formats if you genuinely don't care about competitive rules, if you're just playing it on your own or with your family or with your friends. Absolutely fine. This is for your local tournaments, and these are for your store championships and any other major tournaments you are planning on going to anytime soon from April the 8th of 2025 onward. Bearing in mind, I'm recording this on the 11th because when the news dropped, my newest video came out on YouTube, and literally a few minutes later the news dropped. Great. Anyway, all of the splurge to one side. Let's dive into the first card of the bans, which is Hiram Flaversham Toymaker. Yes, Flaversham is gone. Not limited, not errated, gone. 4-cost inkable 1/6 for 1. When you play this character, and whenever he quests, you may banish one of your items to draw 2 cards. In complete fairness, it's completely understandable why Flaversham was hit. Let me break things down for you. The fact that he's a 4-cost and inkable doesn't really matter, because if you're able to hit him on turn 4 or a little bit early with ramp, he's perfect. If you're not able to hit him that early, don't worry about it. You can ink him, you can take advantage of a little extra ink in your inkwell, everything's absolutely hunky-dory. The main thing that makes Flaversham scary is the fact that he can draw you 2 cards both on play and on quest as long as you have an item to banish. And 9 out of 10 times those items are going to probably be a Porpsicle and a Fortisphere. And the reason why is because they are very cheap items that you can easily recycle from discard into your hand and play back out again and rinse and repeat to make sure that every turn you'll roughly get at least an extra 2-card draw. Beautiful. But the other thing that makes it really good for Flaversham is that because he's 4-cost, he's also able to cast a lot of 4-cost songs that are very, very good in current format. I'm thinking along the lines of the Steel Then Along Came Zeus that does 5 damage to either a character or a location of your choosing, and 5 damage on anything is pretty great. Being able to sing it for free on a Flaversham if you don't have any items out is a huge win, because then, yeah, your opponents can bop into Flaversham, but Flaversham has 6 willpower, making him very hard to bop through, and all your opponent needs is maybe 1 Cogsworth out, and now he has 6 willpower and resist +1, making him harder to bop. But Then Along Came Zeus isn't just the scariest thing out there. He can still sing the 3-cost songs, like Let the Storm Rage On, Friends on the Other Side, if you do want to play him in Amethyst, and other things like that. The other scary one I will make note of is more on the Ruby play, which is Be King Undisputed, which is effectively the Tremaine way of banishing, where you let your opponent pick one of their characters and it's just flatline banished. The great thing about Be King being it bypasses Ward, which is a huge plus. So with that bearing in mind, Flaversham, even if you don't have the items to quest for to draw 2 cards, is still mega viable. And I know a bunch of people will probably be thinking, but Flaversham can be rid of in Ruby very easily with things like Sisu, Brawl, Medusa, Tremaine. anything that involves removal with low attack. Even Emerald quite likes dealing with Flaversham, because Emerald, if you have Muses out, or if you play Cloud Kicker, for example, or you just play something like Mother Knows Best, you can just immediately bounce Hiram Flaversham off the board, but you don't really want to give it back to your opponent, because then whenever they've set up the board again and they need a couple more cards, they'll just play Flaversham again, banish an item, draw 2 cards. It doesn't beat the engine. The level of consistency that this one card has in any deck that involves at least a few items that are cheap, yet alone 4 to 8 1-drop items, is mad. It makes sense why Flaversham was banned. Good pick. Now for Fortisphere. And it was a bit of a weird one for me and a bunch of people. I think when we heard the original news, I saw a bunch of people going, why the heck would they hit Fortisphere? Where's my hit on Diablo? And even some people saying, where's my hit on Amber Rapunzel as well? Which I think they are worth talking about in a future video. And if you want me to talk about potential cards for banning, erratas, or limitations, let me know down in the comments, and I'll gladly do a follow-up to this one with any cards you may think could be banned in the future. But yes, Fortisphere is a bit weird. You look at it, it's a 1-cost inkable item. When you play this item, you draw a card, and when you pay 1, banish the item, one of your characters get Bodyguard. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to worry about the Bodyguard effect. I think most of the time in competitive play, you barely see the Bodyguard effect ever used. The main reason Fortisphere has been hit is because of its conjunction with other majorly played cards. I've said it when I was talking about Flaversham. This plus Porpsicle made Flaversham insane to deal with. And with that in mind, you then have 2 1-drop items, which early on just keeps you drawing cards. And then by the time you bring out Flaversham, you now have extra draw engine on top of your mini draws off of these cheap items. It's a no-brainer. It works too well. But apparently, I looked into this, and according to what the developers have said, and I've tried to find the source, before recording this video, I have searched everywhere that I can to try and find the source that confirms this, so please take this with a grain of salt, and if you can find the source, please let me know in the comments, on my socials, etc., so I can clarify things in the future. But apparently, developers decided to ban Fortisphere because giving Steel non-conditional draw was not their intention. Now, what we mean by non-conditional draw is drawing cards but having a caveat as a result. So the equivalent of this in Steel is kind of like the brand new 1-drop Mulan, which has the effect of when you play this character, you may draw a card and then discard a card. That's the caveat, right? So that's the main way Steel deals with a lot of their draw engines, outside of things like Let the Storm Rage On. But you can also say Let the Storm Rage On, it's uninkable, it's a 3-cost card, it's a song, so you can technically sing it in order to cast it for free, and it deals damage and draws you cards, so you're basically using it to deal the damage and draw the card as an additional, not necessarily as your core, so that's perfectly fine. So, to one extent I get it. You've already introduced that Steel has the idea of drawing a card, discarding a card, and that's okay, not saying that's a bad thing, but non-conditional draw is okay. And I very much stand in the area of every color having at least one way to draw cards that is unconditional isn't a bad thing. Because being able to draw cards is the biggest problem in the game anyway, I find, and some color combinations do way better with card draw in comparison to others. This is why we are now in a format where Flaversham and Fortisphere have been banned, because Steel and Sapphire, with these 2 cards alone, had so much draw potential, it was kind of insane. And I still stand to this. I think the worst card draw in the game, or at least one of the hardest card draws in the game, is Ruby because I think the most reliable card draw in Ruby is probably medallion weights. And I like medallion weights. That's a 2-cost item where if you pay ink and exert it, choose one of your characters, they get a boost in their attack, and if they attack this turn, you draw a card. So that is conditional card draw, because you need to attack in order to draw. And it's the same effect like with the Shift Queen of Hearts that has the same ability in Ruby also. So that's conditional card draw. Amethyst, you technically don't have conditional card draw because you have things like Friends on the Other Side where you just draw 2 cards and Finders Keepers where you just draw 3 cards. In Amethyst it's fine, but in Steel it's not. I find it a little bit puzzling. I personally don't like that idea, but let's get that to one side and let's actually talk about why, in my opinion, Fortisphere was banned. On its own, it's not bannable. On its own, it's perfectly fine. On its own, it's perfectly balanced. And on its own, outside of Steel and Sapphire, where you have access to both this and Porpsicle, I don't think it's a threat at all. If anything, it's a nice little 1-drop card that helps you with your card draw, especially early on in Steel in any combination. Outside of that, Sapphire and Steel have become so dominant in general that, quite frankly, I can understand that Ravensburger needed to hit either Porpsicle or Fortisphere to just shut down that incredible amount of consistent draw in one way or the other. And some people are saying, why didn't they hit Porpsicle? I think the easiest answer to that is, if they banned Porpsicle, that's 2 Sapphire cards banned at the same time. And if you banned 2 cards from the same color, that alienates a lot of different decks. Not just Sapphire and Steel, but a lot of other Sapphire decks that may run Porpsicle outside of a Flaversham engine, just with that little bit of card draw, just with that little bit of healing, and that's the main gist. At least Porpsicle can allow you to heal. Fortisphere, if it gets banned, yes, it stops you from having a 1-drop that just gives you a card, but at least the banish effect that costs you 1, which is way more than what Porpsicle does, and only gives your character's bodyguard, it's negligible. In the grand scheme of things, it's negligible. I don't think I've ever played a competitive game outside of my own, where I've occasionally used Fortisphere in like brooms to give a random broom bodyguard to like protect my Yensid, who's questing for free every turn. So in that regard, it's a very good play. But in the majority of top-level meta decks, barely are these players going to use Fortisphere for its bodyguard effect. Fortisphere is going to stay on board until Flaversham comes out to then discard the card and draw cards. And it's not even Flaversham. It's a perfect target for the new Tamatoa and the old Tamatoa. It's a perfect target for the Scrooges. It's an ideal target for the new Belle that's come out that also likes recycling items. In general, they had to hit one of these 1-drop items that just gives you an unconditional card draw. And as much as I hate it, it makes sense for its Fortisphere. The best replacement for Fortisphere now is going to be Mulan, or if you're building a different kind of deck, maybe the Simba, that's also a 1-drop. I know it's not an item, but at least it's an option if you want your early game card draw. And don't sleep on cycling. I think personally, cycling a card from your hand into the discard that you don't necessarily need right now is perfectly viable. It just means you have to be a little bit more intelligent about your matchups to know what you need to get rid of now to help you out later, if you know what I mean. It's a hard call, and a lot of people will still think, well, Fortisphere doesn't deserve to get banned. And I can understand that, I can feel that, I get it. But personally, I think it now makes sense to me. Fortisphere is banned alongside Flaversham. This does not shut down Sapphire and Steel in its entirety. It just makes it so that going against Sapphire and Steel isn't a nightmare. I believe it gives other decks a better opportunity to step up against how consistently crazy that deck is. I mean, it's mad enough that they have the Belle that comes out for free if you banish a Fortisphere. Now, by doing this, yes, they're going to keep Belle, but at least they don't have the consistent card draw they would get with the combination of both Fortisphere and Flaversham to back up the entire engine. They need to mix things up a little bit. Apologies if we waffled a little bit there, but it's a big topic to bring up, and it sets the level of which Ravensburger is basically giving us for future bans. As I said, I've tried my best before recording this video, trying to find sources of developers coming out as to why they have banned the cards and give reasons as to why. I have not been able to find anything anywhere, but I'm just giving you my 2 cents as to maybe why. If you have other reasons why you believe these cards have been banned from Lorcana, let me know your thoughts down in the description below, or hit me up on any of my socials in the description, and you can just let me know. And if I have enough feedback from you guys as to what you believe has happened with the bans, and even other cards that you think could be banned, errated, limited in the future, then we could do a follow-up video to this and go a little bit deeper into banning philosophy in Lorcana and where things can potentially go. But whilst you're down there in the comments and the description, also have a look in there, because you can consider subscribing, liking the video, sharing this with other Lorcana buddies in case they did not know of the bans and want to hear some crazy British person talk about his opinions on them. And with all that being said, I'll be seeing you guys next time for another video. Hope you enjoyed and I hope you were informed. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay explosive. I'll be seeing you guys next time. Now, I wonder what could get banned next. Could be Diablo. Could be Rapunzel. Can you imagine if they hit John Silver in Steel, you know, the one that gets huge with locations? Wait, that'll kill my deck. I don't want that banned.